How y'all doing? Let me welcome you to a very, very, very special evening. And I want to thank you for investing your time tonight to be here, making an investment in you. Isn't that awesome? Tonight we're going to love ourselves to health. I'm going to get into explaining what that is. But I want to first recognize not just the audience here, but as Dr. Dollar stated, the people that are watching really worldwide. We're broadcasting right now in 122 countries. Isn't that amazing? And I would submit to you that the real pandemic that we have faced, the real pandemic that we continue to face, is the disease in our body. And we're going to disrupt some stuff tonight. I have some doctors that are here with us that are on our team at Zoe Wellness Centers of America. And I warned them in advance that we're going to be a wrecking ball to medicine tonight because we're going to say some things that maybe you've never heard before. So I want to welcome you, and then I want to also thank our host, Dr. Creflo, World Changers Church International. I'm just so grateful and thankful for the privilege to be here to bring some truth and understanding to this subject of sickness and disease. Now, before we get started, and I'll introduce who I am and tell you about Zoe and all that other good stuff, we're going to have a little fun. Now, normally they say, turn your phone off, or at least silence it when you come to an event like this. If you have a phone, I want you to keep it on. We'll keep it silenced. But I want you to keep it on. I want you to hold it up really quick. Let's see who has a phone. Now, that represents the entire 122 countries watching, and many, in fact, are watching us by way of a phone. But that phone, what a great communication device. And that phone tonight is going to help me find out exactly why you're here. Now, before we go further, let me explain. And I'm going to move quick because I have 15 minutes, and I promise to stay within that time. We are not capturing any data from the questions I'm about to ask you that you will answer by way of your phone. I'm saying that publicly. I will not be emailing you when you give me an answer. That's number one. Number two, we won't be texting you. Number three, I will not know who you are. That means the question that we're about to ask you, if you would be willing to answer as honestly as you're willing to answer, is not being disclosed. It is private, meaning it's not your name that's going to be listed. It's simply you checking a if, then, or else, or multiple choice, so that we can find out some information. And the information that I'm really looking for is to serve back to you an understanding of really where the world is. So what I'm going to do is ask our master control to pull up a QR code. We know what that is on the screen. And all you have to do is hold up your phone, take a little picture right there, and then it's going to take you to a website. If you do that for me really quickly. It is going to take you to a website. And on that website, we're going to begin to go through a couple of questions. Now, the first one, I'm going to call it a throwaway. So I can show you what we're about to show you. So I can show you how it works. If you are at the website, then we're going to go to the first. I'm going to give it one more moment so you can get that QR code. And to everyone on television who's watching, you can see the code. Hold up your phone, click the code, it'll take you to a website, and there we will begin to ask you a few questions. We'll go quick. We'll go quickly. I think most people in this room have it. I'm going to wait till every phone is down, and that will tell me that the rest of the 122 countries have got it too. All right, all right. Thank you for your patience. Here we go. First question is a throwaway. This is to show you how it works. I'm going to go to the first question on the screen, and you'll be able to answer. First question was, what kind of pet do you have? Now, some people have already dove in and they're answering. What is interesting is how many dogs we got, how many cats we got. Look at the numbers. This is real time. This is people answering this question. We don't know who they are. They're not by name. But we know that there are lots of dogs, lots of cats. I think that the none might fall into the other category. If you're sitting by someone who's your significant other and you maybe consider them your pet, then maybe you're in that column. All right, let's get to it. That shows you how this works. And now we're going to have a little fun. We're going to go to the next slide. At the top it should say, click to the next slide. And now you will find the next question. How are you watching the conference? Let's see what's happening here. In person, 5% of our viewers are Word, 2% are other. We're looking for online streaming. Most people are right here in this room. Now that'll keep climbing. The numbers will come in. But I'm going to move us to the next question so we can keep the time. What disease factor, symptoms, or concerns related to your health, your body, do you have? Heart, blood pressure, I'm listing in that category. There's a number of cardiac issues that people struggle with, but we put blood pressure also in that category. Diabetes, I want you to look at these numbers. Diabetes, pain, cancer, digestion, obesity, mental health, sleep, autoimmune, circulation. This picture tells 1,000 words, doesn't it? I would submit to you that if we were to profile the vast majority of the Western world, we would find these numbers to be pretty much the same, and they're staggering. This also gives me a good indicator of why we're here tonight. I'm going to go to the final question. Currently, I am taking, and fill in the blank, number of medications. While you're filling that out, let me say to you that if you're over the age of 55 years old, chances are you're on as many as 2 different medications. I talked to someone yesterday who came through our center, and he's on 5. What's interesting is in that 1 to 2 category, statistics tell us that by the time you reach a certain age, which is the age of full maturity, and we transition to our heavenly home, that someone that's taken just 1 or 2 types of medication will have taken 14,000 pills before they transition. Hear me when I tell you, 14,000 pills. I'd said to my doctors before the conference kicked off that if you see one of them dart up on stage and try to knock me out, it's because I'm going to be a wrecking ball to medicine, and they are medical doctors. I'm going to make a real challenging statement to you, and that is that disease does not exist. Hear me closely. Yes, disease by name is what describes much of what you saw on that poll. But the way I look at disease is that disease is a symptom. In fact, I would submit that disease is the name of what we are told we have at the moment that we go see the doctor so that we can get a name to then get treatment. And the cycle goes something like this. You know something's going on in your body, and you finally decide to go to the doctor to find out what it is. And the doctor gives you a diagnosis. Thank God for our doctors. Thank God for medicine. And they give it a name. But it's at that moment that treatment begins. Some of us, surgery. Many people, medication for the rest of their life. It's darkness because there's no light. It's cold because there is no heat. Disease is the name of the culmination of symptoms and a condition, the absence of good health. Tonight, what we're going to be unpacking for you is how to achieve true wellness. Zoe, the God kind of life. A life where nothing's missing, nothing's broken, everything's whole. Our pastor has taught on that for so many years. And the one area that that the world has seemed to have overlooked is that God is not in the treatment business. God seeks to heal us. And by definition, cure what's going on in our body, which is to eradicate it completely. Doctors used to pay house visits. They didn't come to live with us. And medication that we might take, in some cases, are necessary for a lifetime. We're going to get into some genetic situations on the platform tonight. But by and large, in most cases, medication is not the end of the thing. And it's not what we have to be on for the rest of our life. What we discover in the world of Zoe Wellness Centers of America, when I got sick, Damon Davis, I got diagnosed with a thyroid issue, 3 nodules on my thyroid, autoimmune disease. They diagnosed me with RA, rheumatoid arthritis, and they told me I'd be in a wheelchair in 15 years. My father died of heart disease, heart transplant, converted through medication into cancer, and he died at 58 years old. His father before him, 57 years old, heart disease. His father before him, 57 years old, heart disease. Does anyone hear a generational curse going on here? Well, a generational curse can also be just generations of not understanding how the body works. And what we can do, self-care, to bring our body into balance so that it can do what God designed it to do. Heal itself. I believe in supernatural healing. I went to the altar one time, and I'm telling you, I got it. And I walked away, and I went back to the life that I led that got me sick in the first place. God wants us to understand how to get ourselves well. And He created us 3 parts: spirit, soul, body. Man created in the image of a triune God. This is the area that you will discover tonight that we talk about not just in the world of Zoe, but the doctors that are on my team specialize in. An area of functional medicine, integrative medicine, where we're not treating symptoms, we're getting to root cause. We ask the question, how did we get there? And what we discover, and now the rising tide in medicine, and I mean the rising tide is raising all ships, where every doctor that's paying attention now is looking at the science of medicine and physics and an understanding of the gut and the brain-gut connection, what's happening at a cellular level. And we're discovering that there's something way before the food that we put in our mouth. We call it the plate before the plate, and that is primary food. And as I transition to this team to join me on this platform, we're going to unpack for you why we have a problem. And in the category of spirit, we know there's only one solution, at least that we're talking about tonight. And my apologies, I have placed these in the wrong bag. Let's ignore that on television. Dr. Dog, I apologize. In the spirit bag, we have understanding. And I will tell you that medicine now knows that meditation is so important. We call that prayer, don't we? Knowledge and understanding. What in the world would we have if we didn't have this to turn to? And the darkest night of the soul. Well, when we don't have that to turn to, what do we turn to? In the soul bag. My apologies. Medicine, big medicine. Big medicine is being fed by big insurance. And big insurance is being fed, no offense, because believe it or not, I just dress well, but I'm overweight too. Big insurance is being fed by big people. And big people are being fed by big food. This is not a conversation about conspiracy theory tonight. This is a conversation about, within these bags is an industry of food that is feeding us stuff that we've been eating our whole life, not understanding that what is really happening is that we are filling the empty spaces at a cellular level that your body is telling you or convincing you that you need. And ladies and gentlemen, hear me when I tell you, and we're going to get this party started. Hear me when I tell you. Your cells, I'm talking the way down how God made you. Your cells are designed to feed the body, and they are fed by something called glucose. In America, and we're in the city where this comes from, and I'm not attacking this company. In fact, I had one of these yesterday. I believe in balance. But inside this little can is something that only 2 people in the world understand. In fact, the ingredients, the special formula, only 2 people know. And they never fly on a plane together. And they figured out a way a long, long time ago that if salt is added to that can, the more you drink, the more you want to drink. You're not hydrated, you're dehydrated. And then they added something to cover up that salt. Sugar. Today it's fructose. And what you don't understand is that there was this little hormone in your fat cell called leptin. And that little hormone, God put it there, is designed to tell you you are satiated, you are satisfied, you're full. But most of us get full because of how we feel, not what the body tells us. Every ingredient in every single packaged food that I showed you has chemical profiles that are not bringing balance to your body. They are disrupting the balance that God intended. They're causing the gut to malfunction. Chemicals are not going to the brain, giving you the kind of good feeling you're supposed to have. Instead, it's being shut off. And instead of getting to the root cause and fixing the problem, when we have indigestion, we get on an antacid. What it's doing is treating the symptom, but it's creating a bigger problem because that little pill that you're buying over the counter actually disrupts the way God made the body. And soon enough, the body doesn't produce the natural acids it's supposed to properly digest your food. Then when the gut's out of whack and you are carrying around more pounds than you need, not realizing that the average person is carrying that's 20 pounds overweight or more, please forgive me for being graphic, as much as 8 to 15 pounds of undisposed fecal matter, because you can't have a normal movement. Hear me when I'm telling you, we then turn to something like this. What are we doing? Workarounds, workarounds, workarounds. Primary food is understanding that way before the plate there is a reason that the bag of food is so much larger than the spiritual bag. And the soul bag is so much smaller than the food bag. Because what big medicine, big insurance, and big food understands, and we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry, actually multi-trillions now, is that if you were to actually get well, they'd be broke. I thank God for the medical establishment. God heals through medicine, and my goodness, as our emergency medical doctor will tell you, we need big block medicine to handle big block problems. And as Dr. Akon Essian, functional medicine doctor, will tell you, who studies the body and is an educator in health, you don't have to live on a pill for the rest of your life. In almost all cases, we give the body what it needs, and it will heal itself. I want to welcome to the platform Dr. Akon Essian. I want to welcome Dr. Stephen Gabriel. And I most importantly want to welcome Dr. Creflodollar, our host. Let's get this party started. you still have your phones, and everyone watching online, they do as well. We're going to allow you to be engaged in the conversation tonight, and I must disclose in advance, we're not here to diagnose, treat, or cure anything. That's God's job. And we do not recommend that you stop seeing your medical professional. What we're here to do tonight is to talk about really how the body works and give you information and impartation that you can take control of your health. And this is going to be a roundtable discussion. We haven't rehearsed. We haven't shared questions. We're going to do this live. And I want to imagine for a moment that you're sitting in front of us in the consultant room at Zoe Wellness Centers of America. And you come through the door and you're trying to lose 30 pounds in 30 days. And we don't start with, here's what you should eat. We start with why you're here. And the real goal is not just weight loss, because losing that kind of weight is possible. The real issue is how we put on the pounds anyway. And on the journey to wellness, it's not a destination, it's a journey. The journey we're going to embark upon tonight is the journey you'll take for the rest of your days. Meaning, we want to re-engineer how our brain works. We want to change how we think, how we see food. We want to change the emotional connection we have to food. We want to understand that food is our medicine and medicine is our food. And that will set you on a course tonight, I believe, to the greatest days of your life. Someone say amen. Are you ready? All right. I want to start with the spiritual part of primary food. Can we do that? And Dr. Dollar, if you would, sir, as it pertains to spirituality, as it pertains to relationship, what are some of the key building blocks that you would say are the most important things that we could do, that we could practice relative to our spiritual health and where that's concerned?
Well, one of the most important positions that you need to be in is a place of peace. When you're at peace spiritually, then that will translate to your soul. It'll translate to your physical body. And, you know, the Bible says to meditate in His Word day and night and to continue to do that. That word meditate means to mutter. It means to ponder. And what happens is we spend a lot of time pondering the wrong things. And worry is a negative form of meditation. And, you know, people used to be very afraid of the word meditation because it was associated with cults and so forth. But it just really means to take the time to ponder and take your thoughts and go to your happy place. And somebody says, well, what is that going to do? It's going to do a lot. Because when you're not meditating on the right things, then you're going to find yourself stressing over the wrong things. And that stress, all of a sudden, it goes from an unseen spiritual realm, and it begins to transfer that to your soul. Then it transfers it to your body. Now, the next thing you know, you've got negative impact and certain chemicals that are being released, all because you're thinking on the wrong things. And so the influences of life will produce the way you think, and the way you think will produce the way you feel emotionally, and that'll affect your decisions, which probably will affect what you decide to eat. Nobody wants broccoli when they've had a stressful day. We want chocolate, Kool-Aid, and so spiritually speaking, if you're at a place of peace, and the advantage we have is, the Bible says, Jesus said that I give you my peace, not the peace that the world gives. And the distinction here is that the peace of Jesus is designed to take you through stressful times and not allow those stressful times to damage you. I use a biomat, which we're familiar with, because, when I go and see my primary doctor and he says, your big deal is to make sure that the work you do, that you don't give stress the opportunity to do a number on you. And I'm thinking, dude, when I pick the phone up, it's stress. So we came up with the use of the biomat, which sometimes when I go home, I'll go and and lie down on that mat for 30 minutes. And it kind of helps cortisol levels, and I feel great. And also the Avicin, which is, I'm sure Damon will talk about a little later, but I come up with a plan to try to deal with things when I allow my peace to kind of move away from the place it needs to be. But spiritually speaking, if you keep the peace that Jesus promised you, meditate in God's word, take a scripture with you throughout the day, something comes up, choose to think on those things that are positive, those things that are encouraging. That's going to be a base and a foundation for good health, making the right decisions and knowing what to do. But unfortunately, if you don't achieve that area of peace in your life, you can take all the vitamins and supplements in the world, and it's not going to really help you because your cells are not in a position to receive it. So take the Jesus peace and learn how to get into a place of rest and a place of peace. And every night when I go to bed, I say, Lord, I thank you that I have peace, and when my head hits the pillow, it'll hit it in peace, and you'll give me sweet sleep. So I use my words to speak to myself and to calm my spirit down and to make sure that I don't let decisions in my life cause a mountain out of a molehill. Let small things stay small things. Don't cause them to become great things in your life. So that's something that I practice, something that I know of, something that I practice more now than I've ever practiced before, is I don't allow my peace to be taken by anybody. If it costs you your peace, it's what? Too expensive.
It's amazing, Dr. Dollar. The church has known about the importance of meditation and prayer much longer than medicine has. But I want to tell you what medicine tells us. That medicine, I'm talking by study, clinical study, tells us about the value of meditation, how we respond to stress. If you want a good reason to praise God instead of curse somebody, if you want a good reason to pray the very moment you feel stress coming on, if you want a good reason to take a walk in the morning, take a walk in the evening, even in the midst of the worst calamity, take a moment to step outside of the situation and find a way to manage that stress, here it is. A 2016 meta-analysis published study in the Journal for Brain Behavior and Immunity found that, watch this, meditation, we're going to call that prayer, meditation significantly reduces markers of inflammation in the body. Inflammation, ladies and gentlemen, is the precursor, the baseline to nearly all disease. Our doctors will chime in a moment, but I want to hit one more for you if I can. A 2017 study published in the Journal for Frontiers in Human Neuroscience. This is the study of the brain and how stress impacts the brain. Found that brief meditation, was associated with significantly reduced levels of the pro-inflammatory cytokine titled IL-6 in healthy adults. What we don't know, that the church has known for a long time, that science is telling us with the evidence in study, stress is the silent killer. Stress does something to your gut health that will literally cause digestive issues. Stress and anxiety will cause the bacteria in the gut to go haywire. Stress will cause your immune system to malfunction. Docs, am I speaking the right language here?
Absolutely. Is this working? Absolutely. I don't know. Can everyone hear me? There's so much that's been said that's so amazing. I could touch on a lot of it, but You know, the key thing that you said, Dr. Dollar, when you talked about meditation and prayer, is that when I think about this from a medical standpoint, being a physician, is that this really is what shifts in your body, you working off of your parasympathetic nervous system versus your sympathetic nervous system. And if people are familiar with those two things, your nervous system really has two branches. The parasympathetic system is when your body is at peace and functioning and flowing properly. The sympathetic nervous system was designed to be a high-stress situation. A lion is chasing you. You're about to fall. Something extremely stressful has happened. But what's really happened in the modern day is that we now live most of our lives in the sympathetic world. And the body wasn't designed to function there. Your digestion doesn't work well in the sympathetic world. Your repair doesn't work well in the sympathetic world. You don't fight infections well in the sympathetic world. You create all kinds of chronic issues in the sympathetic world. And I know myself, I think probably everyone does, we're running minute to minute. I hear from people all the time, every second counts now. I'm looking at my phone, I don't know what's happening, and I can tell you that chronic stress in your body, and what Dr. Dollar is talking about when he says you got to take a minute to pray, to be with yourself, that moves you to the parasympathetic system. So I'm just relating that, why it's so important, and talking about this in terms of digestion, is that your entire GI tract, which is really just interacting with the outside world and where nutrients are coming in. If you really think about it, your GI tract is really outside of your body, right? It's a tube from here to here, and it's outside. And in that tube, there's a whole bunch of bacteria, viruses, fungi, all kinds of things living in there. And just like a garden that you can imagine at your house, if you put in that garden a bunch of dirty water and poor sunlight, what grows there is a bunch of weeds, right? And what happens is if you feed that area with healthy water, good sunlight, and good nutrients, a bunch of flowers grow there, and the whole thing functions much better. And relating this back to stress, when we have a lot of stress, that area cannot function and grow properly. And what happens is there's poor motility, there's poor nutrient absorption, there's bad bacteria that starts growing inside there, and they want more bad stuff, honestly. They usually want more stress, like weeds and stuff. I want more stress, I want more sugar, and it begins to feed on itself. And there's a direct connection there from your gut to your brain. And it actually goes in both directions. I can tell you from before coming out here, when you're a little nervous, you get butterflies in your stomach. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? That's because those two areas are directly connected. The brain and the GI tract directly connected. It actually works both directions, because when you eat a bunch of junk and you put bad stuff in your body, your brain doesn't feel good. And your brain doesn't feel good because you feel anxiety, depression, and tired. And that's just from food. These two things go back and forth. So what I'm saying is this connection is so powerful and it's so good. And it's really something to take this in and think about this every time you put something in your body.
When the brain-gut connection is disrupted, the chemicals, the feel-good chemicals that the gut produces that are sent to the brain are not only interrupted, but they're stopped. When you're stressed, what happens? What do we do? Most of us. We call it comfort food, don't we? There's over 100 trillion bacteria in your gut. Over 100 trillion bacteria. God put it there. Micro living organisms that science tells us it's your bio-individuality. It is your microbiome. It is the thumbprint of your digestive health. And we know that your thumbprint, that microbiome, it came from either the delivery canal that you came from or the hands that touched you when you came out. Your microbiome is set at birth, and it's a governing system and part of how the body functions. Those 100 trillion bacteria that once upon a time were well organized and little colonies and communicating and were fed good stuff, was sending the good chemicals to the brain. Dopamine, serotonin. Once upon a time we're sleeping right. Once upon a time we didn't respond so aggressively to stress factors. But something happens along the way. Maybe you came down with a really bad cold and you were given penicillin. How many of us have been on antibiotics and probably multiple rounds in our life? Those antibiotics are designed to kill the bad stuff. But what happens simultaneously is it also kills the good stuff. Stress, death in the family, child abuse, a bad relationship, something happened bad on the job. Stress factors disrupt the microbiome. They disrupt the bacteria. Over time, those good chemicals, the feel-good stuff, how we're supposed to be feeling, we start treating by self-medicating. And food is one of the biggest places we self-medicate. And sugar is one of the leading chemicals that we are using to self-medicate. And we find it in nearly every food. Why? Because it's addictive in nature. And the food industry knows this. They did a study of your brain on sugar and your brain on crack cocaine. Do you know that sugar on the brain had the same effect that cocaine did? Now listen, those microbacteria, they feed off of fiber. They feed off of really good leafy green vegetables. They feed off of the kind of food that God created, not that's cooked up in a lab, not that's genetically modified, not that is processed and bleached. You add the penicillin and amoxicillin, and then you add ibuprofen to deal with a headache, Tylenol to deal with inflammation, right? You deal with the kind of junk that we're putting in our bodies to what? Not just to be satiated, but because the body is now screaming for those good chemicals. And we're giving it the artificial ones. We're not only disrupting the gut, but now we're standing in the way of those microorganisms to do what God designed them to do. And it's a vicious cycle. Dr. Essien, am I hitting the nail on the head?
Absolutely. I'd like to focus in, we've been talking about stress and other factors and the fact that inflammation essentially is the nexus of all disease and disruption in the body. So the question becomes, how do we address that? We're talking about meditation to deal with stress and our food. We can't, life is life. There's going to be stress. How do we put ourselves in the best position to deal with what life puts in front of us? What most people don't understand is that when it comes to the body, which is the most remarkable machine ever created, you have to make sure when you're doing things, you do some things in a comprehensive way. A lot of times when we try to address health issues or we have other problems, we focus in one particular area. Unfortunately, the body doesn't work that way. When we really want to make impactful change, we have to have a comprehensive approach to address the inflammation. And I'd like to introduce another term. Inflammation, we know is bad. I heard a term recently that I really like. It's infla-aging. Okay? If you see somebody, or I should say the best way to take years off your life on this planet is to continue to exist in a high level of inflammation. So in order to be successful in putting your body in the best position to deal with these issues, again, it has to be a comprehensive approach. So what do we need to do? In order to maximize your health, wellness, disease prevention, you have to make sure you're engaging in proper behaviors in 3 particular areas. 1, make sure you're getting enough regular exercise. That's, everybody, oh, I saw eyes roll back in the head. But it's important because that exercise, again, is strengthening the body. It's strengthening the immune system. It's strengthening the heart. And it's also allowing any toxins or things that negative things we put in the body to be able to get out. Every time we move, we walk, what happens? Our muscles are contracted. And that's helping our vessels contract. And we're pushing those toxins out. So you have to make sure that you're getting enough regular exercise. Now, this doesn't mean you have to be in a gym 7 days a week. If you just walk around your neighborhood 3 times a week, that's a wonderful start. So the first part is exercise. The second part we've already been talking about is diet. The food that we're eating basically is medicine. That's what it is. I mean, if you look at supplements, even the prescription medications, they're just elements condensed, but all of that is coming from food. So we have to make sure that, again, we're feeding ourselves appropriately. We want to feed the soul appropriately with the meditation in church. We need to feed the body as well. So when it comes to diet, there are actually 3 things. Because a lot of times, again, we have that singular focus when everybody says we need to make changes for weight management. The first thing you think, well, I need to control how many calories I eat. So let's just start removing calories. Okay, calories is important, but also the quality of those calories is also important. Eating less of the foods that Damon's been talking about is not what we're going for. We need to improve the nutrients going into the body. So that's the second part. And the last part is how those calories or nutrients get into the body. That also is very important. A lot of times when we, again, try to make dietary changes, we just said, well, I'm going to reduce calories. I'm going to do that by knocking off meals. I'm going to eat once or twice a day. How many or anybody in this audience or have a friend that said, I'm eating once a day to reduce these calories and I'm at the same weight or I'm gaining weight? Who's heard that before? Exactly. Because the problem is your body doesn't like that. Your body is built to protect itself at all costs. If you're not eating regularly, your body says, uh-oh, is this a famine state? Is this going to get worse? In case it is, we need to protect ourselves in case it doesn't get better. So the way it does it is basically by bottoming out your metabolism. So even though you're eating a smaller amount of calories, your body still sees it as a surplus and it's just storing up for that rainy day. So again, understanding how things work and doing it in a comprehensive way. So again, with the diet, it's the quantity of the calories, the quality of those calories, and how the calories get in the body. And the last part is making sure you're getting enough restful sleep. Which again, the way society is set, we don't get enough of that. But when we sleep is when the body repairs, regenerates. And if we're sleeping, 1 or 2 hours or 4 hours a night, we're not getting that. So we're just breaking ourselves down night after night, night after night, night after night. So again, in order to be able to achieve these things, you have to make sure, again, you're engaging in behaviors in those 3 areas. And when you do so, your body is able to function the way it was designed, and it's also strengthened to be able to thwart off any insults, whether it's COVID, whether it's some other disease state, whether it's your own genetics. You're in the best position to deal with that going forward.
Studies tell us that we are 20 to 25 pounds heavier today as a nation than we were 20 years ago. Isn't that amazing? Why? What happened in the last 20 to 25 years? Are we just eating more? It is what Dr. Essien spoke to. It's what we're eating. People come through our center all the time with the first question, how do I lose weight? And they've been carrying around unwanted weight for quite some time. And it's devastating on our health. And it's not, by the way, always the stuff we see on the outside that matters. It's what's on the inside. inside the body, the fat that is packed around the organs to protect it. Not just the subcutaneous fat, not just the pounds on the outside. And what has happened is we put on the pounds over years because of the kind of food that we're eating. And specifically, there's one area that if you were to understand food, that it truly is medicine, we could nearly eradicate every single type 2 diabetic in North America. If you are dealing with type 2 diabetes, you might not have been told that your food has everything to do with it. Something happens in the body when you eat certain kind of food, and really any kind of food. Your insulin spikes. Insulin being produced from the pancreas, we know that. What is it doing? It's regulating your sugar levels. Over time, with the kind of food that we're eating, white bread and chips and sodas and everything else, and I'm not trying to have a religious conversation tonight. We believe in balance. I'm not saying get rid of all of that. I wish that you could. But if that is your go-to source of food, if the go-to source of food is high carbs, high sugar, high processed food, it is causing insulin spikes like you wouldn't believe. Until at some point these spikes and the body's trying to regulate itself, you can become what's called insulin resistant. Dr. Gabriel, explain what happens when that occurs.
So, again, lots of amazing topics here. I'm going to start, I just want to add in that I just looked at some data last week that the average American or average person in the Western world is eating about 250 grams of sugar a day. And that, I don't even, at first when I saw that, I don't even know what that means. And I thought, is that high, is that low? And then I looked and saw that maybe 50 years ago it was around 100 grams of sugar a day. But what's even more interesting is when you start looking back 100 or 150 years ago, it's down to about 5 to 10 grams of sugar a day. So the reason, why is that? The reason why is all those foods on that table didn't exist 100 years ago. The reason why they exist is because we love them. And we love them, and they feel good, and they taste good. And we've now, when Damon says balance, in my view, when I say balance, I don't know what balance is anymore. If we say it's balance, does that mean we go back to 150 grams of sugar? Or should I be going back down to 30 or 40 grams of sugar? And we're so far out of balance, we don't even have perspective on this anymore. And the reason why we go to this stuff is because it works. It works in making us feel a certain way when we feel bad. Because when this didn't exist, you were forced to take a walk, exercise, pray or meditate, take a deep breath. That's the only options you had. And if you felt like you needed food, you were pretty much going to fruits or vegetables or grains or whatever was available to you. But now we've given you a quicker fix that harms you, and everybody's happy to do it because they're all in on it from a financial standpoint. It works, you buy it, they're like, we're happy about that because I can promise you the people who run those companies don't eat the food they're making. I can tell you right now from living in California that the top execs from all the social media companies, as a side topics, will not send their kids to schools that have social media or computers in their school's classroom. Could you imagine that? They're actually making this stuff and they're like, if you guys want to consume it, it's great, but not for my family. If you guys want to buy it, that's great, but not for my family. And that's where things have gone to. And what happens is, going to the insulin resistance and the insulin spikes, is that what happens is insulin is what makes you put weight on. That's why people who go on keto melt away melt away fat. They melt away fat because they have no insulin. So they're eating lots of calories, but nothing stays in their body. I'm going to throw in one personal experience here to close this out. If anyone's ever done keto here or gone off sugar, you know that you are absolutely crazy the first 3, 4, 5 days. You can't even take it. It is so painful, you're going to lose your mind. A matter of fact, for me to do it, I take a week off work because I think there's no way I can work and do this. The funny thing about it is, after the 5 or 6 days that I go off sugar, I don't want it anymore. I think this is so easy. This is so easy to not want sugar. And the reason why is, going back to that gut microbiome that we're talking about, there's a bunch of bacteria. The bacteria in our gut determine what we want to eat. Remember I said that there's a neural connection there that goes to your brain? They literally have proven that whatever the gut bacteria want, they send a signal immediately to the brain to get fed. And if there's a bunch of bacteria that want sugar, which is what happens when you eat a lot of that stuff, they now live in your gut, and if you don't feed them, they'll go crazy. And what does a human do if you're about to die? You'll do anything to survive. So will those gut bacteria. They'll produce so many little molecules that tell your brain to eat sugar so that they don't die. They make you crazy. That's why you feel crazy. But once they've died off, you're like, why do people even eat sugar? It's not that great. I don't want it. And then what happens is the same thing for anyone who's been suffered with alcoholism in their life. You go to something 3 months later, 6 months later, and think, I don't have an addiction problem with sugar. I'll have one. And all those guys come back. And then the next day you're like, you know what, this is so easy, I'll have another. And I'll have some Doritos today because I'm good now. And you're not good. You're back in the cycle. And you're back purchasing all this junk that kills you for somebody to make a bunch of money. And that's the bottom line. You do have the choice to say, I don't want that stuff. And the reason why this is so important is because this affects all diseases. This affects how the body functions, how you fight infections, how you fight cancer, how fast heart disease comes into your body. It affects everything. It's the entire system. My first cousin told me the other day, who's been really healthy lately, he said to me, it's so funny because all we're talking about half the time is what supplements to take and what to do with this and that and all these things. He said, but the really hard stuff is exercising and eating right and getting rid of the bad food. And it's really hard. And the other stuff almost doesn't matter until you get that part down. And you've got to just go through it. And his last line to me was, he sent me a text, and the really hard stuff is awesome and fun once you can do it. Once you do it, it feels incredible doing the hard stuff. It's easy to go to the doctor and get a pill. It is. It's easy to eat that food when you don't feel good. It's easy to do all the bad things. It's hard. It's hard to show up to church on Sunday. It's hard to meditate. It's hard to sit there and be with yourself. It's hard to take a walk when you're stressed versus picking up some Doritos. It's hard to exercise. I hate exercising. Let's all be honest. All of us sit around and talk about, just do some exercise. Who the frick wants to exercise? Let's be honest. It is hard. I go through a mental thing for 10 minutes before I can even get started. It is like I'm battling myself. When I'm done, I'm like, I feel awesome, right? But to do it, it is brutal. And so I try to put in my mind, like, I can just do 10 minutes. I can do 10 minutes of anything. There's no excuse for not doing 10 minutes. And then once I do 10, it's easy to do 15. But you got to start with something easy, and you just got to do it. You got to psych yourself out. The next time you're stressed, I have a shelf actually in my fridge that I say, if I want to eat because I'm stressed, it's 11 o'clock at night, I have work to do or something like that, I can only pick from this shelf. I got some broccoli on there. I've got some carrot sticks. And you know what? Half the time I look at it and I think, I don't even want that stuff. I must not be hungry. But dang, a cookie sounds good. I'm so confused. And so you just got to do it, and you got to force yourself. You almost got to corner. That's every day before I go to bed. If it gets to late at night, I still can't make that excuse, because 10 minutes, I can do 10 minutes of anything. And I've got one shelf, and this is all my choices are. And when you start doing that, you'll be aware of yourself and how much people have conned you to make money. And it's the truth. And lots of people are in on it. You got to remember, insurance is in on it. Healthcare providers are in on it. The food industry is in on it. The drug companies are in on it. Big money is in on you being sick. And they don't care, honestly, because it's your choice. And if you decide not to do it and they decide to do it a different way, they're like, okay, we're happy to go on vacation to Hawaii while you make yourself sick. And you got to rise above it. And it's super hard. Nobody can tell you it's easy. It's super hard. But they've put the stuff in front of you. They have. And it wasn't a choice before. But someone realized that we'd all go to it if they put it in front of us. And so you got to change that. And that's really the only way to start getting healthy.
Understanding the food is really what you're talking about, getting educated. And that really is a process. It is a process. It's not easy, especially when the information seems to be not so readily available. And most of us are following what we were taught. We have to reteach ourselves. We have to learn it new. We really do. And it really is about valuing yourself. Dr. Dollar, the conference theme is loving yourself to health. Do you feel that part of, we give in to the condition? We accept the new normal, what life has become. Once upon a time, we're healthy. Once upon a time, we're skipping and we're vibrant. We have energy. We're sleeping through the night. And something happens. We get sick. We get a little sicker. Medication helps us manage through. Life continues on that slope. And before you know it, it's the new normal. And it's crazy what will happen. We will settle into that new normal. We will actually get comfortable with the new normal. Pain in our joints that we learn to live through, and we learn to manage through some over-the-counter medication or maybe prescription. And it helps us get through. We are in toxic relationships, perhaps. Not making any suggestions tonight. I do believe in the law of addition and subtraction. Add to your life people that add to your life and subtract those that take from it. But in truth, before you know it, you're coping and you're putting up with stuff, and relationships become toxic and it affects your health. And what do? You go to the food and you just get by. So much of what's happening is us just getting by. And it's taking its toll on our bodies. And does any of that, Dr. Dollar, at some point have to do with how we see ourselves, how we value ourselves? Perhaps that we don't love ourselves as we should, or as that God loves us.
Well, we've developed a mentality of just settling for things. And we look at ourselves and we say, well, I'm just getting old. This is what's supposed to happen. I can't tell you the number of folks I've gone in to see, and they say, well, you know, you're getting older. And I reject that. And in fact, I had a little sprout with a doctor I went to. I injured my knee, and she said, oh, it's just probably arthritis. This is just a part of aging. And I'm like, I fight aging like I do the devil. You know, and I challenged her. I said, go ahead and take an x-ray. And she came back, she says, I've got to apologize to you. And she showed me, she says, you still got all of your space and everything. And then she started prescribing medication, and she looked at me, she says, you're not going to take this. I said, nope. I said, I'm fine. I don't even know why you would talk medication when the x-ray just shows you that there's nothing wrong. And but we settle. And I'm not going to settle for anything. In about 8.5 years, I'll be on my 70th year, and I plan on carrying on the same protocols that I have in my life right now. And I don't want to look, old and nasty because I'm settling for soul food. And you black folks, we know what soul food is, right? Candy yams, fried chicken, apple pie, ice cream with it. Ooh, child, I gotta have me some butter pecan ice cream and watch this movie and oatmeal cookies. And you settle for that kind of thing. And then, you know, I'm on a whole food plant-based diet. And I mean, I challenge everybody that cooks for me. It needs to be good. I want to feel like I'm eating normal stuff. I want you to take fried chicken and figure out how to make something that tastes like fried chicken. And they look at me like, that's not going to happen, you know. But I do. I think that, you know, we've taken what some people call a norm, and we've made it our norm. And I'm saying don't settle. Don't settle for arthritis in your knees. Don't settle for inflammation. That back pain you have is just a big part of the inflammation that you're experiencing. Don't settle for a dozen of Krispy Kreme donuts, which I used to eat by the dozen. But now that I changed my diet, I taste the oil and the stuff I never tasted before. And so I'm so happy this panel. I mean, this is like a common sense conversation. The doctors are not using all these big words that nobody knows. And I never did understand. Why are you telling me this big word? Break it down, start off there, and then you can use the big word for yourself when you're in. But this is common sense conversation here. And so far the conversation has been, watch your stress, watch what you're eating, movement is a blessing, and hey, my brothers and sisters, get off the soul food. This is how my mama used to do it. And she died at 50, didn't she? And so let's make the necessary adjustments, because it's making the adjustment. Live or die. Live or die. My dad died of a heart disease. My granddaddy died of heart. The curse, I broke the curse in two areas. If it were not for health and wellness, I mean, I've defeated cancer twice. And bounce back and doing. I'm just as healthy right now as I've ever been. But part of that was, even in the midst of the process, I didn't go get me a Reese's peanut butter cup or use that excuse. I stuck with good eating habits. I walked. I did what I could do, and you know, prayed and kept my peace. And praise God, I'm here and thankful and grateful. But please listen to these guys, man. Take advantage. Zoe is on this campus so that it could be convenient for you to begin to attack sickness and disease that tries to steal your health. I don't know what else to do. You know, we can talk to you, but to put it on the campus, it's like you go to church and check your health. I don't know how easy that can get, and I want you to take advantage of it. We buried enough people during COVID. Let's get some folks that are going to stay around here past their 100-year. My mom just turned 84, 85, and you know what we did? You know what we got her for a gift? A physical therapist that would come in and help her with movement, because movement is a blessing. Movement is a blessing. You can't stay home and sit around all day long and expect to achieve what you want to achieve. So I am thankful for Zoe. I'm thankful for, you know, looking at people who all their lives dreamed of losing 30 pounds. And I've been checking some of you out. You lost the weight, but then you went back and to the bad habits and stuff. And you wonder, like, why am I fat? Because you went and did what got you fat in the first place. Yeah. And so thank God for Zoe. They've come up with a really amazing aftercare program to at least give you the signals to say, no, don't do that. No, don't do that. Do this, so that you can maintain the success that you achieve. And I just love it. I just love me some Zoe wellness, and now I can't go nowhere. It's like they on radio, they on TV. I'm like, God, that was Zoe everywhere. So please take what you've heard, take what you're hearing, and make some decisions. A decision is an open door into reality. It's not going to become real until you make the decision, and you have to be intentional about making the decision, and then you get on it. Day after day, just keep showing up at the dinner table, right? Showing up walking or something, right? Just keep showing up. And then over 30 days, you'll see some things. 60 days, you'll see some things. 80, you'll see it. And you'll enjoy looking at yourself naked now. I mean, you know, you won't keep the lights off until you get out the shower.
Are you enjoying yourself tonight? All right. We're at the halfway mark, and we got a little ways to go. And I want to encourage you to stay dialed into this conversation. We're about to get into some very practical steps that you can take so that you leave here tonight and can apply some of those steps as soon as this evening to make a marked improvement, see a marked improvement in your health and your vitality, okay? In a moment, I want to play a video from Dr. Joseph Feuerstein, who's on our medical team. And he is an adjunct professor at Columbia. And he specializes in an area of integrative medicine where, as he states, over 45,000 patients and has never used medication once to bring about a healing event. Did you hear that? Not once. I want to just help you understand, if I may, for just a moment, that the journey of getting sick and diseased is that it's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. I want you to hear me. Our bodies talk to us. I remember once upon a time when I noticed inflammation in my hands. I woke up one morning and I couldn't close my hands. It was tight. I stepped on the floor and it was like I was walking on glass. And I ignored it until it got really bad and went and saw that rheumatologist. He did some tests. I walked out that day being put on methotrexate. That's a cancer drug. He also put me on something called sulfasalazine, which really what it did is it shut off my immune system. What in the world? What was happening? As I would decide what to do, either stay on the machine wagon, which is to stay on medication the rest of my days, which, by the way, one pill leads to another pill. We deal with propping up or managing some symptom, and the toxicity of the medication will create another problem in the body. You don't start on one and end up at 5 different medications overnight. It is a process. It is a journey. And I didn't get to inflamed overnight. It was the result of eating wrong for a long time because I didn't know what was in the stuff that I was feeding myself. I didn't know what white bread would really do to me. I didn't know what bleached white salt would do to my body. I didn't know what sugar would do. I didn't know that you couldn't drink 5, not regular Cokes, because I had realized I'd put on some pounds, but I thought by going to Diet Coke, that would make a difference. Oh no. But I also didn't realize the importance of meditation, like I should have. The importance of prayer, like I should have. The importance of forsake not the assembly. The community that we must have. I didn't understand how to manage a budget and the importance of managing one. I didn't understand that I wasn't just supposed to soldier through and soldier on all the time and push through the stress that had an impact on my body. I didn't know what primary food was, the plate before the plate. And the inflammation turned into some other condition. And then that condition turned into some other condition. Hear me. Before you know it, it's out of control. And you wake up one day and you're 45 pounds heavier than you should be. You got a section in your closet for the fat clothes, because maybe, or the skinny clothes, because maybe one day you can fit them in again. The next thing you know, I'm buying different shoes because my feet hurt. The next thing you know, I'm waiting to find a closer parking space because it hurt to walk. The next thing you know, I'm on Ambien because I couldn't sleep and I needed something to put me down. The next thing you know, I had indigestion, so I was on an antacid over the counter. I'm telling you, it's a true story. Before you know it, Life, as you knew it, has permanently changed. And as my wife is my witness, I went to bed one night and I asked God, there's got to be an answer. There's got to be a different way. And God took me on a journey. He took me to Eden. I'm telling you just what happened. He took me back to where it all began. And he asked me a question, which led me to a revelation. The devil can't create anything. All he can do is mess it up. But he witnessed creation. I would submit to you that the devil is a scientist, an engineer, a biochemist. I would submit to you that the devil knows how your body works better than you do. I would submit to you that the lion that is looking to devour your life has found a way to do it differently. It's no longer in just the messed up relationships. It's no longer in the private things or the secret things in our life. He has found a way to infiltrate food. I mean, after all, what he specializes in is rewiring God's original design. And before you know it, you're out of balance. And I mean really out of balance, where no longer is it the spirit of man connected to the spirit of God and having dominion over the soul, the seat of our affections. And they indwell this body. But now, the soul life is leading you, the connection to the world. And now that soul man is feeding itself everything that is found in those bags separate from that Bible. Which means that almost everything in the grocery store that you're buying that does not exist on the outside rim is designed to mess you up. And one day you'll wake up, you come through the doors of Zoe, and you saw an ad that said, I want to lose 30 pounds in 30 days. And we ask you when you come to the door, what medications are you on? What is Damon Davis and the team at Zoe really looking to find out where we're going to go next? Zoe, to lose weight, is a Trojan horse in your life to get to the bigger question. How did we get there? How did we get here? And as Dr. Dollar stated, we're coming out with a program to help you stay where you're supposed to be, where the pounds don't come back. And that's educating yourself on how the body works and practical steps that you can take outside of a conference like this where you can take control of your life. And I did that. And what I discovered in my life was that the medicine machine is not the answer. God gave you all that you need. He built your body. He gave the body all that it needs. If you give it half a chance, it can heal itself. Now, we're not talking about genetic factors and things that take big box medicine and take pharmaceuticals. But I'm telling you, most of what you're dealing with tonight, the numbers I saw on the screen, is completely within your control. If you just understand what to do. If you understand how important hydration is. That we should be drinking water and not sweet tea all the time. That soda is not how we hydrate. That you're not going to get hydration in any processed beverage. Are you hearing me? There was once upon a time I didn't drink water at all. I found a way to enjoy it. Sleep, as Dr. Essien talked about, is so critical. You cannot make it on 4 hours a night. Your body will not heal. You've got to manage your stress. Take a walk. Step back. Pray. Meditate. Talk to somebody you can trust that can help you process what's going on. But the most important thing is this thing called food. Dr. Essien alluded to it. Almost every pharmaceutical drug is from a food source. Can you believe that? Food's healing you. And some scientists figured out how to isolate the chemical profile found in food and now patent it to now sell it back to you so that you'd be trapped on it or stuck on it the rest of your life. Those that are on metformin, it's because there's a problem with the pancreas properly processing, or you got an insulin problem. And if you don't know that you can get off the pill, it's because the doctor's not telling you that. Why would he or she? Money's at stake. But the longer you're on it, the possibility is that that will become an injection soon enough. Can anyone relate? That's a process. It starts with an insulin problem that then becomes you're on the pill, that before you know it, you're living on an injection. And what did they do? They didn't say, how do we stop the insulin problem? They said, let's create insulin to support you for the rest of your life. It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. Across the globe. What? Pharmaceutical drugs to prop us up and treat symptoms. What you've got to understand is that food is your medicine, ladies and gentlemen. You're right. The broccoli and the carrots and the peas, the stuff that, quite candidly, I love, but many of those things become difficult to enjoy. You have to rediscover them all over again. And if you don't like the taste, let's discover how we can prepare them in such a way that you love them all over again. Are you hearing me? Yes. All of that finds its way, processed through this mouth, through this gut. And this becomes the breeding ground right here. Imbalances in this gut, driving inflammation, precursors to nearly all sickness and disease. The Lord said if you can get your gut under control, if we can heal the gut, we can change everything. Dr. Joe's going to speak for just a moment on just that. If I can, allow me to play this for you from a man who specializes in an area, having sat down with 45,000 people, and the very first place he goes, it's what's happening in the gut. Watch this if we can, please.
Good evening, everybody. Really such an honor and a privilege to be part of this health conference. Really hi to Damon and to Dr. Dollar and to my brothers, Dr. Gabriel, Dr. Essian. It's really just, as I said, such an honor. The question that I want to propose and I want to try and answer is, what does that actually mean when we talk about food is medicine? So let me big picture this for a second. A small amount about me. I teach at 2 medical schools. I'm actually a professor at one of the Ivy League medical schools. What do I teach the residents? What do I teach the fellows? I teach them nutrition, because nutrition is incredibly important. Personally, in my own practice over the last 15 years, I've seen 15,000 patients, and all of them were treated through nutrition. No medicine at all. So what does that mean to me? Food is medicine, and medicine is food, is that when you come to a Zoe Wellness Center, we're going to look at what you are eating, not just all the prescription medications you might be on. Perhaps some of them you won't need to be on once you've done one of our programs. But the idea here is that we're looking at a much more fundamental thing. What are you putting in your body? And how does that impact on your health? So let me give you a simple example. Insulin is a hormone. I think we all know the hormone insulin. What does it do? It keeps blood glucose levels under control. It's a problem if you're diabetic, because you have a problem with insulin, and so we might have to give you insulin. So in Western medicine, and I'm a Western doctor, just like Dr. Gabriel, just like Dr. Essian, in Western medicine, what do we do to keep your sugars under control? We give you medicine to keep your sugar and your insulin levels normal, in a normal range. So what do you do if you don't want to use medicine? If food is your medicine? So now you need to start thinking, okay, I'm not going to give you a prescription pill. I'm not even going to give you an herb. I'm going to give you a diet. I'm going to give you something to eat. And if you eat the right foods, you can control your sugars And then the medicine is a secondary thing. Sometimes you may still need to take medicine. But the primary thing we're trying to do is to look at what you're eating. So in the case of a diabetic patient or a person with blood sugar issues, by the way, that's 30% of the entire population have blood sugar issues. So when we look at what they're eating, what we're looking at is we're looking at the glycemic index, my friends. What does that mean? Food that we eat, especially carbohydrate essentially is turned into sugar. The body turns it into sugar. It's digested and it becomes glucose. And that's important because our brain uses glucose to work. The preferential fuel for our brain is glucose. However, not all carbs are equal. And this is what I teach the fellows, and this is what I teach the residents in the medical schools, the future doctors. Not all carbs are equal. So we have a concept of a glycemic index. There are certain foods like, I don't know, a Mike and Ike or a candy or a cookie. You eat that, almost immediately your blood sugar spikes, your insulin spikes, you're not going to feel good. That is what you're trying to prevent with medication. But if food is your medicine, if you're using food instead, so you're not using medication like we're doing at Zoe Wellness, that situation, we're looking at what you eat. So we're going to change what you eat to food that is lower in the glycemic index. It has more fiber. It slows down the digestion. What does that do? The blood sugar levels go up slowly. They go down slowly. Your body doesn't have to make so much insulin. It's not taxing the body. It's not causing inflammation. All of those things purely through food. What else will food give you? Plants, fruits, vegetables, berries. What do they have apart from fiber? They have phytonutrients. All of these incredible antioxidants. All of those things. And that's stuff that you can't get from a medicine. We don't really have those. But in food, you have all of these phytonutrients, those antioxidants. The body is continuously under stress. The body continuously, as part of the metabolism, it makes these reactive oxidant species or things called free radicals. Nothing's good if you have free radicals because they damage your DNA. And we don't have any medicine that's going to help do that. But what do we have? We have food, we have fruits and vegetables and berries and all of those different colors. Those are all different pigments that are antioxidants. So again, you're using food instead of your medicine to control your sugar, to help increase the phytonutrient element. Fiber is found in all of these food, incredibly important for the microbiome. Your gut is an incredibly important thing because it controls not just whether you go to the bathroom, your gut controls your health. The bacteria impact on your health. They're associated with weight, they're associated with mood, depression and gut issues, cardiovascular disease, heart attacks, strokes, cancer. It's all related to your gut. We know that, as Hippocrates says, all diseases start in your gut. So what are we going to do about your gut? Medicine doesn't have an answer. In Western medicine, we don't have any medicines that are useful for the gut. What we have in integrative medicine are foods like fiber. And what does fiber do? That's a food that promotes the right type of bacteria in your intestine. Those bacteria ferment the fiber and they make these incredibly important compounds called short chain fatty acids, which nurture the entire gut. They help improve permeability of the gut. They stop inflammation. They're anti-cancer. They're antioxidant. All from food. And again, there's no medicine that does that. So the concept of food rather than medicine is not that medicine is bad. Medicine is fine. I'm an MD, as you can see. And at the right time, in the right circumstance, you may need medicine. But if you're only taking medicine and you're not thinking about how you eat, and you're not thinking about the plate and all the different colors and all the phytonutrients and the fiber and your glycemic index and what is your fat that you eat and does it come from the right sources and what is your protein source and is it the right protein source, you can heal your body. You can get your microbiome to be purring happily, looking after every part of your body. And you can do this really through medicine. And that was what I did with 45,000 patients. So this is not pie in the sky. This is absolutely the fundamentals of treatment. This is how doctors should be treating patients. So to be clear, when I saw a patient, the first thing I did was tell me how you eat. Tell me exactly what you eat. Oh, well, I eat a bit of this and a bit of that. No, I want to know precisely what you eat. I want to know exactly what's on your plate. I want to know when you eat it. I want to know how much you eat it because that is my medicine. That's how I'm going to do it. I want to know how you sleep and how you move and how you deal with stress and what is your relationship with the divine, with God, with the Creator, because that's the fundamentals of health. And that's what I mean when I say food rather than medicine. You may need medicine. Sometimes it's vital, but you can't live without food. So the right food at the right time, eating in the right way, that is the real medicine. It's really a pleasure to be here, part of this incredible conference. Back to you guys at the conference. God bless.
All right. Dr. Dollar, are we oversimplifying it? I just heard that, and I thought to myself, gosh, I heard none of that when I went in to see the doctor. None of that. Are we oversimplifying it, or did God not make it this simple? And then I want to let Dr. Essien share on a little bit more on the immune system, because that's going to be important to talk about.
Our motto is with simplicity and understanding, and all you're getting. And no, I don't think we're oversimplifying at all. I think that we need to keep it simple. We need to keep it simple so that people can walk out of here and say, okay, I know what I need to do. I know how I need to begin my journey. You know, I grew up, we went down to my grandmother's house, and she got all of her collards out the backyard, and everybody had a little garden in the backyard where they raised collards and tomatoes. We were eating organic, didn't even know we were eating organic, you know. And of course, she lived, almost 90-something. I had an aunt who lived over 120 years. I mean, when she died, everybody was like, I thought she died 30 years ago, you know. But no, sir, I love simplicity. We love simplicity. I think that's where we're going to have to take society, those who are willing to go. And I don't think we have to complicate and frustrate and confuse the deal here. But it's pretty simple that we've got to pay attention to what we put on the inside. I think that old saying, you are what you eat, may be becoming something that we need to really take a look at and take a hold of, and especially how sugar is so addictive that, you know, you're not going to believe how tempted you're going to be after we dismiss tonight to go buy crystals and get a lot of. You're going to try to buy some of the stuff that you see right up here right now. But I'm going to say this. Listen, it's live or die. I mean, that's what we're talking about now. Because ultimately, if you create a habit, that habit's going to create you. And so what kind of habits are you creating in your life? And what are going to be the results of the habits that you create in your life? So keep it simple. Yeah.
It's never too late, is it? Some people feel like they've gone too far, that they're too sick. They look at their body and it's falling apart, and they lose hope. And they look at this hill that we're saying we can climb, and it isn't as easy as we say it is. And they face the hill and they just give up. It's never too late, is it?
It's never too late, but you've got to pay attention to, I mean, what do you want out of life? Do you want to be in pain every day you wake up? It's not a norm. You don't have to be in pain every day you wake up. Do you want to be depressed? Well, you found out tonight that has a lot to do with what you're doing with your health, your movement, all that. Those things don't settle for. You don't have to settle for feeling bad. You don't have to settle for, well, the doctor told me that I got this and ain't nothing he can do. I mean, that's why they got a lot of doctors. Find one until you can find somebody that's saying what you want to hear. But don't settle. I think that's so important. A lot of people have settled. They've settled for high blood pressure. They have settled for inflammation. They have settled for, I don't know why I have these headaches. Let me get me a medicine. It's not sustainable, to stay on medications for the rest of your life and then having the desire to live the way it's not sustainable. You can't live off the medication all your life and feel good. So let's switch over. We call it renewing your mind, or actually we call it repent. Change the way you think. Okay, literally to change the way you think. Repent from the old way of eating, the old way of thinking, and the old way of settling for things. And let's listen. Let's come into this. Let's get the wisdom that I believe God has made available. You don't have to die at 70. 70 should become like young right now. 80 is becoming young right now. And I want to still be pimping. When am I going to retire? I'm never going to retire. I don't have people that retire die. I'm not going to retire. I'm gonna be doing it at 100, and I'm gonna say, I remember your great grandmama when she was here, and I'm telling you the same thing. And I don't. Somebody asked me, do I use dye in my hair? I don't use dye in my hair. I'm not saying I won't use dye in my hair when I come in, but I don't use it right now. So yeah, I think the key: don't settle.
Don't settle.
Yeah,
that's so good, Dr. Essen. We recently just walked through. I don't even know if we're on the other side of a horrible, horrible pandemic, and we're not going to get into a debate tonight about what's real, what's not, and where it came from, anything else except the most important thing, and that is that many people were lost because of an immune system issue. We weren't fit to fight. We talked about that last year. For anyone who was at the conference, we were in the heat of the thing. And we talked about being fit to fight. We talked about understanding the immune system, how vitally important it is that the immune system is strong. Let's talk about it if we can.
Definitely. The one thing I want to add, we were talking about it's never too late to start. I want to add to that, it's never too early to begin. A lot of us got to this position because we ate the foods that our parents put on the table or our grandmother put on the table. We followed their habits, and it just keeps recycling. We should all take this information that we're learning today and turn around and tell somebody younger, or tell our children or our grandchildren, and put them on the right path so they're not where we're standing right now. So, again, I always like to bracket it. It's never too early to start and too late to begin. Now, back to your question about the immune system. So, the immune system is the way the body takes care of itself. It is the law and order of the body. The majority of the elements that make up the immune system are in the gut. That's why we keep going back to that. Because again, back to the term I talked about earlier, the aging. All the issues that we're dealing with are due to inflammation and an immune system that's out of balance. And a lot of times we go to see our primary care physician, and they say, again, the same things I've been saying in some degree. Make sure you're eating properly, getting exercise, and everybody, their eyes roll back. But after we were going through COVID, now we know it's not a game, right? Unfortunately, who was the first persons to succumb to it? the people that weren't engaging in those behaviors, that had extra inflammation, and their immune system wasn't working appropriately. Unfortunately, for a lot of us, we have to fall and bump our head before we understand something. So coming out of this pandemic, nobody has that excuse anymore because we've seen it. Our loved ones, our coworkers, throughout the world. So we have to make sure we're putting our bodies in the best position to overcome anything that's put in front of us. And so we have to protect our immune system and allow our immune system to work well. Because again, we're always going to need guards at the gate. So again, just piggybacking on what we've said, Dr. Feuerstein said, food is medicine. That food is promoting, the right food is promoting health in the gut, which then promotes a healthy immune system, and that promotes wellness. Simply.
Supplementation. We're going to talk about it just a little bit. Do you supplement? What kind of supplement do you take? Can you supplement too much? I want to start there by answering that question, yes. You know, it's amazing. It really should almost be outlawed. Every vitamin store in every corner will allow you to walk right through the door and buy anything that you want and whatever quantity and level that you want and pile it down and come back every single month and buy it again. Supplements happened, they came on the scene because we discovered that the soil that we were farming had lost its nutrients because it wasn't being turned over the right way. And we were farming ourselves into food that really had almost no nutrient value at all. Supplements came on the scene like vitamin D because we weren't going outside anymore. Natural vitamin D. And you can walk through any grocery store, any vitamin shop, and you name it, you can find it. A pill for this, a pill for that. A pill for this, a pill for that. And if you're not careful, you'll get on the wagon believing, because they'll promote it that way. Supplement sales is a big industry. It's big. That you can take a supplement to do what medicine will do. But I'm going to tell you right now, God didn't plan on us to be living on supplements. Nearly any supplement that we could take, should take, or would take, a good, healthy diet will solve that problem. So in the world of Zoe, you will not find us carrying every supplement on the shelf. All of the supplements are reviewed by our doctors and doctor approved, and we take special care in making sure that the supplements we have predominantly are the supplements that you need. And I'll tell you right now, what should be happening, and we promote this, by the way, is before you get on a supplement cocktail and start self-diagnosing, do a good blood panel and find out what kind of nutrient deficiency you have. I want to say that again. Before you get on a supplement profile that you've put together yourself because you've read in this article and that article, you need this and maybe you're deficient in that, you may not be. There's some basics that we know. I'm going to talk on one, and then I'm going to ask Dr. Gabriel to talk on another. I'm going to speak on vitamin D for just a quick moment. It's a hormone. The body doesn't produce it. Did you hear that? Where do we get it from? Food sources and the sun. Now, it's a crazy thing that with all of the reports on what the sun does to us, so many people are staying away from it. But we've moved into a society where we sit behind desks and computers. We're almost immobile, the work that we do. Or we're at home and we're watching the next television show or the next film, right? We're not outside anymore. We're not getting that natural sun. We're not getting that natural vitamin D. But what we found through COVID was something interesting. And you cannot deny the studies. What they found was that nearly everyone was vitamin D deficient. So the first thing I want to say to you is that vitamin D is important. We need it. It is critical to our immune system. It is critical to driving down inflammation. And supplementing vitamin D within reason, moderation, is not a bad thing. But certainly, natural sunlight is the best. Another supplement that is really important that I think nearly everyone should be on, that Dr. Gabriel will speak to. He is an absolute expert. We have worked together in this specific category for the last 7 years, and that is omega-3. I want him to speak on that for a moment, because I will tell you, every single person in this room should be taking an omega every single day. He's going to tell you why.
So omega-3 is a fat, and I think a lot of us have heard about it. It's one of many different types of fats, and the structure that everyone in science and medicine that we found that's so interesting is that it has 3 different anti-aging and health-promoting effects on the body. And it's really pronounced. The American College of Cardiology it's the only supplement that they recommend for heart disease, because it's really undisputed now just how powerful this is inside our body. So as Dr. Eskin was talking about inflammaging, one of the key things with omega-3 is it literally, once it gets into our body and into our cells, and overall the health of our body is the health of our cells. Once it gets into the cells and gets into the core part of the cell where the DNA is, it literally turns on genes that are health promoting and turns off genes that cause inflammation and promote aging and disease. It has another effect, and that is in all of our blood vessel walls, which if you think about that the blood is flowing through our body through all these tubes, I always call those tubes and the blood that goes through there the river of life. If you can imagine cities and where waterways were going by, how healthy that stream is very reflective how healthy the communities are that are along that stream. And what it does is it actually prevents buildup in the stream on the walls or the edges, if you can imagine, of the stream where junk would pile up. Omega-3 literally cleans all that up and prevents stuff from piling up on the edges of our cell walls, so that the streams or the blood flow can continue flowing and move through nutrients and taking out waste as effectively as possible. The third place that omega-3 is so beneficial is in the cells themselves. If anyone has seen a picture of a cell, they're not all spherical, but let's just imagine for this discussion that there is a sphere there. The outside part, and the way to think about this, if you ever put a little bit of oil in water, you see the little droplets in there. That's like how a cell is formed. There's 2 separate areas. There's the outside water part, and then there's the inside part, which is fat when you put the oil inside there. But the cells are made the same way. There's a barrier on the outside, and there's 2 separate environments. That part that makes the cell wall, or the barrier part, is very critical in how the cell communicates in getting nutrients and communicating with other cells. And the omega-3s go into that barrier and make the cell much more communicative with the neighboring cells and bringing in and out nutrients. So there's a threefold effect of omega-3s that is undisputed, the health effects, and it's hard to get enough of them. It's interesting that when we go and look at like the Alaskan communities where they're eating really heavy fat diets, which a lot of us would think, oh my God, what's their heart disease like? There is no heart disease there. And it's because they're eating all these cold water fish that are so loaded with omega-3s that it seems to prevent all that for them. It's hard for a lot of us to do it, I understand. I've made my diet pretty heavy in, things like walnuts and cold water fish that are loaded with this stuff just to try to boost my levels. But in addition, I supplement, for people who've seen me, there's one that I love the best in terms of omega-3s. But omega-3 supplementation is absolutely critical. And if I may, I have one thing I want to add about the food over here. Absolutely. You know, I was thinking when I was sitting here and looking down there at the food that sometimes it's hard when you leave here because you develop an understanding. I mean, I actually love listening to Dr. Feuerstein talk about food because he is the expert. And it's easy to have an intellectual understanding of something, but it's also different to be enlightened about it and incorporate it into your life. We all understand exercise is good, but then we don't do it because we aren't enlightened about it. For people here, especially we're here at the church, we all know the difference in talking to someone who says, oh yeah, I know about God, and someone who's enlightened about it. They're very different things. You do need the first one to go to the second one, but getting to the enlightenment state is much more challenging. Usually the way we get there is through practice. It's an I do thing. People talk to me about starting new projects or doing different things, and a lot of times they'll say, what do I read first? And it's just, I want to say, just start doing it. That's how you get there. And one analogy that I make with my family and my kids is that one thing that happens once you leave here is you'll see people eating these foods and you'll think it's normal because everyone's does it. That's what normal means. Everybody's doing it. It's average. That's what that means. And so when you see other people do it and you're like, well, the guy's not dropping dead in front of me. Why can't I do it too? It's part of life, right? Like everybody's doing this, so it must be okay. And I'll say this in two different ways. One is, like I said before, none of this stuff existed 100 years ago. So you're not missing anything. I was on an airplane once when the guy just, at the beginning of having Wi-Fi on airplanes, and the guy next to me was so excited about it. We'd never had it before. And all of a sudden the pilot says, you know, it's not going to work. And he stood up and started screaming about it. And I thought, you never had this before in your life. Like, now you're angry about it? Like, how is this possible? And that's how it'll feel if you get rid of these foods. It's kind of an angering feeling that there's something available that you can't have. And what I'll say is, and what the story I gave my kids is that if you went to let's say this function here, and there's some food, let's say out in the back, and someone put some syringes with heroin next to it, you'd think, what the heck is going on here? How are they serving heroin? This is absolutely ludicrous. And it's all because of how things have been marketed and sold to you. Because I can tell you that there's no nutritional value to anything on that table. It's purely made for you to feel good. That's it. Sold under the guise of food, because that's how they could get it into the marketplace. For some reason, I can't get heroin out there under the guise of food. So that's sold in the illegal marketplace. But if you start looking at this type of stuff and start wiring yourself, that's what I'm going to ask you to do when you go home and you see candy. This is what I do. And I start thinking, if this was a needle with a syringe of drugs, this was meth or something like that, I'd be like, whoa, I don't do that. That's not me. Hey, what's going on here? But for some reason, this has become normal. I promise you, if everyone was doing heroin and they were putting heroin on a table out there at every party, everyone would be like, yeah, this is normal. You just do a little heroin when we come here. It makes you feel good. This is all normal stuff because it's become normalized. It was sold to you in that environment. And so it seems okay. Everything is made up and a story was created to get you to buy it. And the point I'm making here is that start thinking about it in that way. When you go for this kind of stuff, that's not food. It's drugs sold and marketed as food. And when you start seeing and start thinking in my head, would I take a shot of heroin right now? Because that's what I'm about to do. And I don't understand why. I mean, might as well just go to the other one. What's the difference? So start trying to train your brain rather than absorbing the marketing of what's been sold to you as what is this really? And if you choose to do it, that's your choice. That's fine. We can all make whatever choice we want. But know what it is that you're doing and treat yourself right, and you'll start walking down a different path.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are about out of time, and we want to respect your time tonight. We promised to wrap at 9 p.m., and we're approaching that time. I want to just thank you for being here, and I trust that the program tonight has been a blessing. I hope that we put some meat on the bone. We've given you some information that you can take away and some practical steps you can apply. Stay connected with us, please. How? Find us online. Dr. Dollar has provided us the opportunity, as he stated, right here on campus, to connect with you and help you walk this thing out. And there's so much that we would want to tell you. What kind of fish you should eat, not eat. Is chicken good for you or not? And if so, what kind? My goodness, eggs are so expensive, but what kind do you buy? What is pasture raised versus, grass-fed versus other beef, right? So many questions that we have about food. And you want to be able to go to a reliable source that can tell you the fact versus fiction with no marketing spin. We're here for you. We're here for you. If you're trying to lose some weight, we're here for you. Obesity is a disease. It really is. But I would like to submit, it's first here, starts here. We want to change the way we see food. We want to shift the emotional connection we have with it. See it as Dr. Gabriel just prescribed, right? Understanding what it can do for us. There's so much that we need help with. It's a lonely place when you're sick. It can be limited and lonely. But you have a friend in the wellness business. And we're so grateful to Dr. Dollar and to this ministry. Number one, for being an inspiration and an influence in my life and calling me into this work. I was sick once upon a time. Decided to come up with some book. And Dr. Dollar said, you need to get this message out. Oh, I have nothing that I could add. What in the world could I do? How could I help? I'm not as smart as like these two guys beside me and the guy on the video and certainly the man of God beside me. What in the world could I do to add to this conversation? Your testimony is being birthed tonight. Your journey to wellness is right in front of you. And just like me, God will use your breakthrough to be an inspiration for someone else. The world is so sick and it's getting sicker. And the devil is on attack. There's got to be more of us on the battlefield. Crusaders for wellness. Allow me to encourage you, and then I'm going to allow our pastor to close us out. Allow me to encourage you to help me in this fight. I'm passionate about it. I'm tired of seeing people sick and diseased and dying when there's an opportunity to do something. Your skinniest days are ahead of you. Your sexiest days are ahead of you. Your healthiest days are ahead of you. God told me when I laid in that bed. I was sick and I was dying. And he showed me that I could do something. He spoke very clearly to my spirit. The richest place in the world is the graveyard. You will find every song never sang, every painting never painted, every business never birthed, every family never cultivated and raised up, ministries that never saw the light of day. Everything that God put in you on the spools of your DNA. It is not too late to let the world see. And the devil knows if he can keep you sick and diseased, if he can keep this temple hindered, encumbered, limited, then that passion and purpose that you have inside you, the world will never see. I need you to get healthy. I need you to get